This video is about the American Civil Rights Movement. You can see the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement in the Montgomery bus boycott and the end in the assassination of Martin Luther King. Of course, there have been activities before and after, but to define a period that is manageable to deal with makes sense, and that is talking about the time span from 1955 to 1968. There were many persons involved, to mention here Martin Luther King, John Lewis, and the more extreme Malcolm X. To the background. After the American Civil War, slavery was abolished. Blacks could now participate in the society and in the decision-making processes in society. But after Reconstruction, the time and the period when the Southern state was reintegrated into the Union after in 1877, blacks were discriminated again. The Southern states used the principle of segregation. The claim, separate but equal, was backed by the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court in 1946 repealed the segregation buses, meaning it is not right to have separate seats for whites and blacks. They also said it must be possible for blacks to attend public schools. Segregation is not okay. Then, the beginning moment in Montgomery, the bus boycott. The buses had seats for blacks and whites. Rosa Parks was sitting on a seat reserved for whites, and she was not willing to give it up for a white man. So there were trouble, and then 13 months of boycott. Martin Luther King was mainly involved, the leading person of the Civil Rights Movement. Then we have in 57 the Little Rock Nine. So a school denied 9 Afro-American teenagers to attend school, and the federal government had to send paratroopers to enforce or to make sure that these teenagers can go to school. There were several similar events, but this made the magnitude clear. In 1960, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee was founded, and they used forms, Gandhi introduced forms of nonviolent resistance. One of these forms was freedom rides, and the first freedom ride started on 4th of May 1961. Freedom rides, blacks and whites, a group of blacks and whites are going by bus through the United States together. These freedom rides faced massive violence and arrest, but by 1962 the states enforced the abolishment of segregation in buses. Peaceful protesters were repeatedly attacked, and the media coverage all over the nation led to growing pressure on the southern states to end the discrimination. In March 1963, there was in August 1963, was a march on Washington with 250,000 participants, and here it was where Martin Luther King had his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, and the sheriff of Selma in Alabama didn't want blacks to vote and obstructed the registration of black voters. Protests were going on, and we have the Bloody Sunday violence against protesters again. Then Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, which made clear that blacks actually can vote. Now, the civil rights movement has become more radical. There were leaders like Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael. They had the Black Power movement, drove whites out of it, and actually also opened the concept of violence. And that was clear with the foundation of the violent socialist Black Panther Party. And the problem was that Martin Luther King partially understood and showed understanding for these radical groups. And the end of the civil rights movement is then the assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968. Now, the civil rights movement could overcome the segregation, discrimination of Afro-Americans, but you have to understand that this is on a formal level, or mainly on a formal level, like in nearly all societies, there's still racism going on. And now Afro-Americans could actively participate in the political and societal processes in the United States. The best example is President Barack Obama, the first Afro-American president of the United States. His inauguration was the 20th of January 2009. That was the American Civil Rights Movement in 5